Jews should be expelled. Butterfly saying that Jews are to blame for the fall of Christendom. People in this hangout often come in and blame Jews for the problems of the West. This happens all the time.
They're a part of the blame to go around, and a disproportionate part related to their size. I think that is true.
Right, that's fine, but the way that it's being put is that they are either a majority or one of the huge factors behind this change.
It's
which
hard.
I don't think is
it's hard not to have that perception when every movement has been.
But that's the point, right?
Jews have been a part of every seemingly leftward movement in an important part. Now, I still blame
but they're an important part
for most of this.
Everywhere where you have Jews, they're an important part of everything because they're disproportionately involved in all sorts of intellectual endeavors.
So
but
we should be able to say that without being called a Nazi.
No. Saying that doesn't get you called a Nazi. What gets you called a Nazi is ignoring the part where the Jews are disproportionately part of right-wing movements and only talking about how they're disproportionately part of left-wing movements and defining away Jewish participation in right-wing movements as being sort of manipulative and destructive in and of itself. So essentially, basically whitewashing Christian history, pretending that before the Jews came, it was all peachy. Those are indications of deranged anti-Semitism. And when you see that, right, if you don't counter that, you agree with that.
But you do realize how once you start spotting like precious metals in the second names on a consistent basis, you can't start unnoticing that. I mean, I'm not being funny. It's hard not to spot trends. And you yourself, you're a smart guy. You'll know that humans, that's one of the things we're good at, is spotting patterns. And that's just how it pans out. Now, when you start digging into things like NGOs and stuff like that, and you start spotting these patterns, it really jumps out at you. And for wanting people to ignore that or not address it, let's just say that's unfair at best.
Well, you don't have to ignore it, but you can't only.
Well, what can we do about it?
We
have to ignore it because if we mention it, we get branded anti-Semite and people attack us.
You get branded as anti-Semitic because essentially of the anti-Semitic views of people you either you associate with or you tolerate or you hang out with, people who blame Jews for everything, people who have essentially a completely disproportionate view of what Jews influence is, and who look at how Jews are overrepresented in left-wing movements, but not how they're overrepresented in right-wing movements, and explain away the Jewish involvement in right-wing movements as being some sort of manipulative tactic to once again hurt the country that they're in. Essentially, when you have anti-Semitic views like this, basically when your view of Jews is paranoid and nonsensical, then Jews are going to be very very anxious about associating with you, and that's going to hurt you quite a lot in a country with
your anxiety is fully on display, verging on paranoia when you accuse me of having the position that I want to expel all Jews from the West. That's something that I have never said. It would be
something that you have multiple. You've implied multiple times.
No, I've implied that your behavior is going to make people want to do that.
You've alluded to forced conversion of your own family. You've alluded to forced conversion of your own family. You are radical.
I'm a radical.
You've alluded to forced conversion. I mean, Christianity.
That is radical, but that's not expulsions.
What do they do? What do you do if they don't convert? What do you do if they don't convert? Forced expulsion is radical anti-Semitism. The notion of forced conversion of the Jewish minority in America is radical anti-Semitism.
Something has to be done because
that's what something has to be done. You are a radical anti-Semite who wants to eliminate the Jewish minority in America.
And you're a paranoid Jew. Like,
no, it's not paranoid. I literally explained to you how you had taken the position that I claimed. I keep on explaining to you how you had taken the position that you actually had taken, and then you call me paranoid, right? I call you out for your anti-Semitism, and I have justification for it, right?
Kyle, you're always talking about Nazism. That is the height of paranoia. There is no Nazi movement. It's not 1933. You need to deal in reality.
Richard Spencer is essentially a National Socialist.
Richard Spencer is an American, and he is not affiliated with any major political organization. Richard Spencer is an individual. You need to take your medication, Kyle, because you sound like a crazy person.
Richard Spencer has refused to denounce Hitler and has said "Hail Victory," which is a Nazi slogan.
Do we need to disavow Stalin and Genghis Khan and Napoleon Bonaparte and every person in history who was ever responsible for a international conflict?
And
you're
what if
asked
he
to
had
renounce
renounced them? Would that change anything? He's still got
Of
the
course
label.
it-
He's not going to shake it. No,
Of
it's
course it
not. You
would
know what
change
it's
things.
like when labels are pinned. You can't unshake that, mate. Sorry.
What you don't understand is that it's not just that he didn't denounce Hitler. It's all of the other things that make him look like a Nazi, including
No,
his
it's your people.
explicit.
It's your people.
your
who
people,
have
right.
a Nazi fetish. If there were no Nazism, there would be no Judaism. You cannot exist without Nazis, Kyle. You need to give up the ghost.
Right. If there were no Nazism, there would be no Judaism. This is just indicative of sort of the absurd perspective that anti-Semites have on Jews.
What's absurd is that you think in 2019 there is a major Nazi movement and that somehow you are threatened by it.
It's not any more major than radical Islamic terrorism in the United States. But it does seize the national conversation, and it does mean that if you are in spaces with these people in them, you need to clarify that you are different from these people, and if you don't, then you will be rightly swept up with them.
If you spend your entire platform, always denouncing these people, then you just are always punching right.
You don't have to spend your entire platform denouncing them. You don't have to spend your entire time denouncing them, but whenever such views come out, you have to stridently denounce them.
We've almost
and that's what began the firestorm. That's what began the firestorm, is me stridently denouncing essentially Nazi perspectives on Jews in America.
So in at least in my perspective, right? So I don't think Muslims should be here. I actually think Muslims should be expelled. Go back to where they practice Islam and Sharia law if that's what you want. I do not promote expelling Jews, but should not be illegal for someone to stand up and say, man, these Jews that are within the media and these organizations like this, Hollywood and these things, are sort of subverting Western civilization. It should not be illegal to say that.
It's not illegal to say that. And I agree that many of the restrictions seem unjust. I think that censorship in general is unjust. That being said, when you advocate the killing, expulsion, forced conversion of a minority, you cannot expect cooperation from that minority. You cannot expect that minority to tolerate you in its spaces. And that's ultimately what's happening, is that this movement is saying, oh, well, we can handle not being tolerated in spaces where Jews are prominent. And then they suddenly realize that actually they do need those spaces, and they have to crawl back in and hide. And that's what's happening, is they're crawling back in and being crypto-Nazis instead of being outright Nazis.
If Jews want to live in Western civilization, they should bend the knee to Western civilization.
The reality is that in America, the people who need to bend the knee are the anti-Semites, not the Jews.
But anti-Semites are like so small. It's like you have this
like the radical Islamic terrorists. Like the radical Islamic terrorists. It's not that they're going to take over the country. It's that they can control the national conversation by sacrificing themselves, by being insane. That's what's happening. I'm not saying that there's going to be a Nazi takeover of America. And repeatedly, I call these people marginalized loser freaks who will never achieve anything. What I'm saying is they're taking over the national conversation. And if you are going to be in spaces with them in it, you need to clarify that you are different from them or be swept up with them.
Kyle, you talk a lot about how people are losers. How's the Wi-Fi from that McDonald's you're at right now?
I'm not interested in defending myself to anti-Semites. What I'm interested in is pointing out how anti-Semites often have bizarre, strange problems with their lives, and seem to be usually unwilling to show their face, show their name, and are this sort of
who are you talking
amalgam
to,
of people?
Because right now I'm using my name and my face, and I've already stated I'm not an anti-Semite. So please don't talk about imaginary people. Address me specifically, because I am talking to you right now. So
you're one example.
You're talking to me though. Are you talking to an imaginary cloud of people, or
you're one example, Josh? And moreover,
address me specifically.
It's very unlikely that you're going to have your
specifically.
position in 10 years. It's very unlikely you're going to have your position in 10 years. What happens with these people, like with Baked Alaska, like with many such examples, is that they try this out for a few years and then they're gone. Unlike Jews, who are going to be Jews for their entire life. So that's what happens.
Are you a Torah observing Jew, Kyle?
I'm a Jew in the sense that.
Are you a Torah observing Jew, Kyle?
Anti-Semites, and I'd be considered a Jew.
Are you a Torah observing Jew, Kyle?
I am not a Torah observing Jew.
So then you are not exactly like your Jewish people, which means you, by your own standard, are incorrect.
It doesn't matter to the Jewish community, okay? It matters to the Jewish community, but not in the way that you mean. I'm still a Jew whether or not I observe the Torah. And I am a Jew to both the enemies and the friends of Jews. And so I identify with the Jewish people. So in that sense, I'm a Jew. Now, genetically, I'm mostly not Jewish. And I also don't observe the Torah. So it's a complicated thing. But in terms of people who are radically anti-Semitic or people who are radically philo-Semitic, I'm a Jew to both groups.
Well, people that are more national oriented, though, have a suspicion of outsiders. And if you are specifically saying that you're Jewish, meaning an outsider, people will be a little bit apprehensive to allow you carte blanche, permission to frame the movement, to denounce whoever you want to. We're protective of what we have.
Well, Rustin, think about the American context. In the American context, a lot more ink has been spilled on Irish, non-Anglo-Saxon unwhiteness than on Jewish unwhiteness. Jews have a history going back to the beginning of this country, and they were never considered non-white. They were never considered ineligible for citizenship. Basically, it is the importation of Nazi ideas that results in this sort of questioning and considering Jews as outsiders.
Nazism itself is an outsider movement that should be very suspicious.
Yes, I know, and that's what makes them.
And if Germans are over here spouting their Hitler nonsense, they can be removed, just like Muslims should be removed.
Germans, actually, I don't think that it's disproportionately German at all. But it is people who are marginalized. It is people who basically have problems and basically.
If it's an American who turns Nazi, well, then there's a different way you treat them than if it's a German immigrant.
The point is that to say that Jews are outsiders is to import Nazi ideology to America, and Jews are not going to accept that. Jews are not going to tolerate that, and you're going to find that you need Jewish tolerance more than Jews need you.
Haven't Jews always, well, at least Eastern European Jews, always considered them that an outsider community?
I mean,
in Tsarist Russia and.
Yeah, but in America, America has been a place where Jews have not been considered outsiders in the same way that they were considered outsiders in old Europe. So the importation of old Europe ideas on this subject, combined with overt references to Nazism, mean that Jews are going to be your enemy, and understandably so. You have no reasonable cause to object to the absolute enmity of Jews if you are going to import old European ideas about how Jews are irrevocably separate and simultaneously give Nazi dog whistles. That is completely reasonable in that circumstance for Jews
to say that Jews are an outside group is not a Nazi dog whistle.
Of course it is, because Jews were not considered an outside group, broadly speaking, in America any more than say other religious minorities. They were considered to be part and parcel of the American fabric.
That's why they had their own ethnic neighborhoods in cities throughout the United States, just like the Irish and Italians, who were also considered to be outsiders when they first showed.
More ink was spilled on the Irish being separate than on the Jews being separate. That's the reality.
The Irish came in bigger numbers, so they were more of a threat to the WASP establishment. But
the Jews also have a history going back to the beginning of this country, and the notion of Jews as being this thing that needs to be looked
Who was the first great Jewish person before 1880?
More than say Catholics, for example, is an importation essentially from old Europe. Is an importation from old Europe.
The origins of this country was an Anglo colony that gained its independence from its Anglo motherland.
Kyle has a point here.
Jews were not a part of this.
Jews actually had a very important role in the slave trade. So, if you want to link back Jewish influence in America, I mean, they are responsible for a lot of things. They just happen to be all of the bad things.
And so,
have you been to European cities before, Kyle?
Yes.
They have Jewish quarters in almost every single city, because they were treated as a different group.
Right.
To say that America would not follow the same trend is
America didn't follow the same trend. America didn't have the same anti-Semitism as Europe, and Jews experienced a great deal, a much better experience in the New World than the Old in that regard.
But to say Jews are an outside group is not an anti-Semitic statement.
Well, to say that they're outside in a manner that's separate from how Irish are outside, Catholics are outside, etc., that is going beyond Semitic perspective.
Well, Western civilization is Christianity. So if you think that Western civilization is anti-Semitic,
but what's the Christianity here? I mean, where does the Christianity cash out? What does it cash out in any sort of actual religious denomination? Does it cash out in Catholics and evangelicals? Like, where is the cashing out of this quote unquote Christianity?
Anybody who promotes mass migration, a hollowing out of the white working class, is an enemy of mine. For the European stock of this country, I support them and us to have a home. Okay,
but
I don't
Rustin,
care about people over the border, over the hills in Africa, Latin America, Asia. I really those are secondary thoughts to me.